I have like a Maslick MEA2 that like I can dial in like incredibly quiet. So you can take like any real approach to it, and I try to take as few steps as I can to reach that end goal. But normally I have like an image in my head of where something needs to go, and through talking with the client and their expectations, normally I can deliver on that. Or at least normally like we can match our visions, and we can get to where we need to go. No, I mean as far as formats go, I ask what formats the client needs, and I mean just literally whatever they want. And so it's like normally it's like 44:116 or 44:124. No, getting a lot more 48:24 now. But I mean, have that, and I mean if you want to go to vinyl, it's like we normally have that conversation up front. If you want to do tape, I mean people say there's like a lot of different like there's a way to prepare for a cassette. It's like not really.
Really?
It's like you're going to have a low end roll off and maybe a little bit of a bump, and you're going to have a high end roll off, and the mid range might sound a little warmer, and that's about it. And it also depends on the quality of tape you go to, but right now everything like as far as cassette goes, and right now like all cassette quality is right around the same. It's not like a hi-fi cassette anymore. They'll come back though.
Really? You think so?
Oh yeah. I mean, CDs will come back. Yeah, we're
really?
gonna do a complete.
You think CDs will come back?
Hell yeah, they'll come back. Why wouldn't they? It's going to be the same. It's going to be the same
files.
Thing. Humans are so freaking predictable. Well, it's the thing is that like a CD sounds better than like an MP3 or something that you're listening to, and so it's like it's just gonna come back. It's physical medium. It's like why did a record come back? It didn't need to come back. It's like people, like a generation wanted a more tangible way to interact with music. Does it sound different? Yeah, I'd say it sounds different because it's an analog format. Like physically, like things are moving. You were following a physical groove as opposed to just reading ones and zeros and samples. So
well, yeah, I mean, I totally hear that with the vinyl and even with the tape, like with like just cassette tapes, but like with a CD when it's literally just reading a WAV file. How is that different than just streaming like a 16 WAV file?
Let's take this back to like if you and I are talking right now in 2003, and I was going to tell you the vinyl record's going to make a massive resurgence, and you, Ben Wallach, need to not sell your lathe, that you could probably just put on like Craigslist and get for, I don't know if you have Craigslist over there, but you can put on the internet for like $1,000 and you'd be lucky to get that, as opposed to now you're not going to get a Neumann or Scully lathe, probably in relatively decent condition, for any less than what you would get a normal car for.
Oh my God.
So it's like they're like, I think this is like a very reciprocal conversation. And so it's like my son will be listening to this and he's like, cassettes already came back and CDs already came back. Probably, I don't know if you'll see like the little mini formats, like the mini disc player. I don't think you'll see those come back. The one thing that I think will be interesting with CD resurgence, because it's going to happen, physical medium connects people with like their bands. I mean, it's like the one thing, there's several things that suck about like streaming, but one of the big things is there's like a massive like loss of connection between like somebody and like the actual band, because it's like, it's emotion. Yeah. And I'm sorry, but Spotify and everybody else doesn't really like complete that emotion. However, Spotify
totally doesn't. Also,
Spotify is a handshake as far as like introduction. And it's like, oh wow, I never knew this band existed. And so it's like on like my Spotify, like it's not connected to my Facebook anymore, but like I deleted my Facebook and all my Spotify stuff went away. And I was like in 2016, well, I got it all back. And I didn't realize it did that all at the same time. So now it's like under the screen name Axl Rosenberg. And it's, yeah, and ever since 2016, I've been collecting every single piece of music that inspires me, and I put it into like a catalog of like a monthly like playlist. And so it could be 3 songs, it could be 100 songs that inspired me that month. And since 2016, every single month, I've like populated these playlists. And so it's like those are all little handshakes that it's like these are bands that inspire me, and this is like the stuff that I really like. And it tells Spotify what I like so it can curate more of that for me So this is the behaviorism thing you and I were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
So it tells Spotify what I like, but then it also gives me like a point to where it's like, what was I listening to back then? And it's like, wait, like, where is this band now? Where can I look them up? Can I buy any of their merch? Like, what can I do with them? And so it's like, how can I further this handshake? How can I further like what's going on? Can I share this with friends? Like, what else have they released? So do they need a mastering engineer? So it's like, it goes in all different directions.
Interesting. And what you said about like the physical format, it's just like really like, you know, I remember as a kid just flipping through the CD covers and the artwork and all that stuff. It's like you own something and it just becomes more precious to you, really. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I mean, kids will get pissed off at surface noise. Like the kids, like when the CDs came out, they're like, oh yeah, it's so quiet and so clear. It's like, yeah, like streaming. And like I was saying, the one thing that might thwart a resurgence of CDs is as the quality of streaming goes up. But you still have, like, I remember as a kid going to like we had them here. They're called Millennium Music, and you go there, and I wasn't into records really back then, but going and looking at CDs, going and looking at tape, and like cassettes and whatnot. And it's like, you just connect with physical things. I remember like as a kid driving around in my dad's green Ford Ranger, we had like Queen's greatest hits with It's a Kind of Magic as the first song. And for some reason that just like ingrains like a certain part in my head, and like used to listen to that all the time. It's like doing yard work and like shoveling mulch and stuff like that. And just like, I like listen to that song and I feel like the heat of summer, and I have like the smell of mulch just like burned into the back of my nose from doing yard work and stuff like that. And just, that's like, that kind of connection. I remember like, and I mean, I remember holding that. I remember opening it up. I remember like reading like the little tiny liner notes and who did what in it, like inside the cassette. And so, it's just, there's something about a physical medium. So that would keep my argument for why CDs and cassettes and everything will come back. So cassettes, we're seeing a resurgence, not as much, but you are seeing them. So I think it'll be very interesting. I think streaming and the way we stream will change drastically. I mean, it has to, because there has to be some type of revolt in the future to when people get pissed off enough. And I mean, it's like if you were to say like Walmart's going to be hurting because of Amazon, it's like, well, you can buy stuff online and have it delivered to your house the same day. It's like, that's insane. And like, no one would guess that Walmart would be hurting because of Amazon.
Right.
No one would guess that. Now, like, Amazon's wanting to get into the prescription business. And so it's like, what's that going to do to drugstores and like little pharmacies and grocery stores and stuff like that? You can now get your pills sent to your door.
Man,
what's that going to do to securing boxes? Right? What's that going to do to like there's so many things that's going to happen. Like, what's that going to do to securing boxes of like delivering pills to somebody's door? Like, how is that going to change how we receive our packages? There's so many things that like we haven't thought of yet, and like how all of this stuff is going to change. And so it's like streaming has to come to an end as we know it, to a degree, at least as we know it, because you don't pay anybody. Nobody makes any music. Nobody makes any money from it. Right. It's borderline criminal. It's like, so everything that we have is going to change. Everything we have is going to change. It doesn't sound good either. You listen to a WAV file, then you listen to like something that's encoded for one of these sites, and it's just sounds like butthole. So it's like, man, this isn't like the intent of the mastering engineer, and like not being prideful. This isn't the intent of the artist. It's like, this isn't what the artist approved. It's like, this sounds different, but this is how we listen to music now.
Yeah, it's the medium.
Yeah, so it's bizarre.
Can I get your thoughts on the loudness wars? I guess like the state of the industry now and what you prefer.
Well, a little peek into the future. When's this episode going to be released?
Probably in like a week and a half to 2.5 weeks.
Okay, so everyone will get a peek. So there's a episode that's coming up in about a month, because we schedule every 2 weeks. So Sam and I can we can have like a breather in between. Like, blessings to you.
Smart move, man.
Blessings to you for doing weekly. You're a bigger man than I am.
I just committed to it up front, and now I have to stick with it.
See, my thing is I set the bar really low from the beginning, and then I just put out a bunch of content and I don't stop. So like in between, people can just go listen to things. And so let's see. In about a month, maybe from listening to this, there will be an episode that will come out on the Attack and Release show called Our Philosophy on Loudness. And my philosophy is that the loudness war is over. I don't really even I think it's so stupid. Because you get a lot of people and their own personal interests involved, and it gets kind of messy. Like people making plugins to help you do this, but then they're the people who are educating you and buy my course and do all this crap. And it's like, I want to know why. The conspiracy part of me, the conspiracy theorist part of me, thinks that the loudness war was invented by people who wanted to make money off of profiting on you making your music quieter. But also the people, I think they just also don't like loud music. So
interesting.
It's like, I don't understand. Like, if you go and you read some of the papers, and a lot of it's been redone, and we did 2 episodes on the loudness unit's full scale measurement system and how it was created, and it was all created for England, and it was all, I mean, there's nothing wrong with why it was created. I think it's just how it was tested, and having a psychology background and knowing how to run tests, and then seeing that all the tests that they did on things, the board didn't approve because they didn't have enough people that they tested, and their tests were insane that they were running. And you can go and you can listen to the Attack and Release show episode. It's the first one that we did. It was Luffs. It was around episode 13, I think. And it's I essentially gave a
I'll pop a link in the show notes, by the way, so people can check it out.
Yeah, I gave a more thorough way to go and test it. I mean, call me out if I'm wrong on it. I'm still not going to use the Luffs measurement system, but I think there's a better way to test how we perceive sound than the way that they did it. And it got rejected a handful of times, and I don't really think it's been improved on much, and people are just proceeding because that's just what was approved.
Well, Spotify doesn't use that. Spotify doesn't use Luffs, right?
They do not. There's somebody who recently switched. Spotify uses replay gain, and there's a bunch of people who explain how all that works. But then it's you get into the whole normalization. It's I could explain what all this is, but I'll have to send you the link to it. And Sam sent it to me, but it's a whole thing this guy uploaded, 25 tracks, all at the exact same volume. And he's just changing the output. And in theory, if normalization is on, they should all sound the same. Nothing should be different. Everything in every single track should sound the same. But even with normalization on, every single track sounds different. And it's all weird. There's no rhyme or reason to how it works. And so it kind of really busts a hole in the whole thing. And I mean, if you look at pop music, some of it's getting quieter, but it's I don't really think there's a loudness war, because with a war there's no end, but we have an end, and that end in a digital realm is called 0. Yeah. And so you can't go louder than 0. It's just how people like their music. And I don't think there's anything I have an issue with normalization in that I understand why it exists, and through playlists and whatnot, it's you don't want to turn up and down the volume knob and stuff like that when you have classical next to Metallica. Well, guess what? Those two will never be in the same playlist unless you put it there. And even then normalized, they still won't come out to the same level. So that's not going to, in a perfect world, it might work, but even if you put them next to one another, they're not going to play well next to each other. Even if they did, that's not the intent of the artist, to have their music jacked up or jacked down, or turned down.
Yeah.
And so it kind of gripes me a little bit, because you really get into artist intent, and it's no, well, you're not actually looking at the Mona Lisa the right way. It's you actually need to come back here and look at it from this angle, and you can see that she's doing this weird thing, and Da Vinci painted this little. You ever see the UFO on the top of the Mona Lisa?
No.
Yeah, there's a little UFO up there. It's no, you can see the alien doing whatever. I'll have to send it to you. But yeah, these are gonna be some really weird show notes.
Yeah, seriously.
And yeah.